We continue our work at the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, and we are starting our discussions on the topic Export Without Barriers, Why Does Business Need Currency Control? Our speakers are Tatiana, Korotka, Deputy Business Ombudsman, Olena, Sotnyk, MP of Ukraine, also Lubomyr Chornii, Senior Expert of the USAID Program Leadership and Economic Governance, Ihor, Olekhov, partner at Baker and McKenzie, and Emal Bakhtari, Head of Projects and Programs of the Open Market Department of the National Bank of Ukraine. Dear ladies and gentlemen, you are having the floor. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I see that I will have to perform functions of the moderator. We are very happy that regardless of the beginning of the vacations period, we have an opportunity to talk about quite urgent and vital topic, the topic of currency regulation, currency control, in a narrower sense, in terms of the barriers and obstacles that emerge for business entities performing foreign economic activity in Ukraine. And prior to going to the problems and discussions, I'd like to give the floor to the director of the USAID Program Leadership and Economic Governance, Sotnyk, and maybe she will make basic emphasis on the discussion we are going to have today. Tamara. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Really, we continue our discussion touching upon the development of business and stimulating its activity both in Ukraine and outside Ukraine, entering foreign markets. And given the importance of this component of currency regulation with regard to existing obstacles on the way of business, which is either on the foreign markets or planning its activity on the foreign markets, we have singled out this topic in a separate session. I want to extend my gratitude to the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center for this lasting cooperation and to our honorable guests who got engaged into today's discussion and who pay close attention to this topic. I'd like to say several words about restrictions we plan to adopt during our discussion. Ukraine needs economic growth. Ukraine needs creating new jobs, improving well-being of our citizens. One of the tools to achieve this is stimulating business development. When we talk about this and about increasing its competitive power, about increasing export competitive power, we mean both systemic reforms and changes that need quite painful negotiations and battles. On the other hand, there are barriers that can be easily removed once we have an information, well-grounded basis to remove them. When we look at Ukraine, at its economy, we understand that this is a rather small economy, a rather open economy, talking about its place in the world. And this means that to a large extent it depends on trade. Giving you some figures, according to the estimation made by Heritage Foundation, in 2017, what was reported yet in 2016, Ukraine, on the level of the trade openness, Ukraine ranks 51st among 181 countries. You understand that it's a rather high level. And this means that Ukraine is obliged to follow a substantial liberalization way, both in the field of trade and all its components. Talking about liberalization in the currency regulation part, we have to think that the National Bank, while adopting its decisions and suggesting it on the liberalization, should find a balance between the needs of the current time and providing stability of the national currency, macroeconomic stability. Besides, it needs to take into account requirements as to the development of economy and the restoration of the economic development. Today, we start with the problems mentioned by business concerning its opportunities to enter foreign markets. Then we will have proposals, including those as to possible amendments to the legislation. And a very interesting part is expected that we may hear what the National Bank is dealing with right now. It's very important. And I'd like to draw your attention to a complex, comprehensive approach and to see a wider systemic picture. That's why I thank for your presence here, and I give the floor to our moderator. Thank you, Tamara. Really, in the first part, we would like to start with problems, with sketching the problems business comes across in the currency control while performing foreign economic activity, and to single out the most significant problems or sets of problems, and respectively to continue our discussion around them in terms of possible proposals and ways to solve them. And I believe that the best way to begin with is to listen to the Ombudsman office representative, because it accumulates certain information and applications from businesses and generalization of information. And I think that we would like to hear them first of all. Thank you, Lubomyr. Ombudsman Council of Business deals with the specific cases. Then we need to look at our mandate in a broader sense. In a certain sphere of business, or maybe about an issue concerning all businesses, all level of businesses. And when Ukraine is rather closed for foreign markets, regardless of the efforts of the Ukrainian government, we are still quite closed. And the internal barriers do not only attract investments, they create additional stimuli for negative development, and frankly speaking, taking smuggling to Ukraine, and they create negative stimuli to avoid taxation and to liquidate opportunities to bring expensive, highly technological equipment here. Business Council Ombudsman, the issues related to currency liberalization or currency regulation will allow all of us, not only the National Bank, to improve the situation, but and to take tactical steps, but to take strategic steps as well. This is returning foreign currency earnings and issues in foreign trade sanctions and movement of capital at a higher level. That is our obligation concerning the EU-Ukraine agreement on creating a free trade zone. We have specific issues we are working on, and we draw attention of all stakeholders that it's right now we are going through a very important time to make a step forward. And we are working with all supervisory boards, or how do they say, law enforcement bodies. And we also work with the expert environment to find a balance that will enable the country to maintain the macro-financial stability on the one hand, and to enable small, medium, and large-size business to develop and to breathe and to move forward, creating new additional products and to pay more taxes to the state bodies on the other hand. I would focus on this wide context of the problem of the foreign currency problem and the necessity of currency liberalization. Our program has fruitfully worked on certain ideas and proposals as to amending the current legislation, and we are very grateful to the European Business Association and its members who were engaged in this work, and we got very profound proposals from the Business Association, and it is represented here by Mr. McKenzie. That's why, Mr. McKenzie, you're having the floor. Please share your set of problems you're working on. Thank you, Lubomyr. Really, I represent the interests of the European Business Association and the position that is the European Business Association has concerning currency regulation. Speaking on the whole about the impression of the European Business Association about currency regulation, if we generalize it, we can say that currently it's the most important problem existing for the development of business in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the currency regulation legal framework that was adopted back in 1993 is quite outdated and didn't change since that time. And from the business angle, to work with any foreign currency payments in Ukraine is impossible in a normal mode. Those 4 or 5 schemes existing in practice and that could be used in practice on the market, they work more or less on the market, but more complicated instruments like international factoring, like risk hedging instruments and so on. All these instruments do not work. Whole industry is working in neighboring countries related to asset management, to stock market investments don't work here. The main reason here, if you ask all the representatives from ministries and agencies, is currency regulation. And for business starting from small to large-sized businesses, it's a big problem. Currency regulation has been existing in Ukraine all this time, and unfortunately its availability was the factor for the Ukrainian business and for foreign business doesn't keep their assets in Ukrainian banks. According to the National Bank, over $100 billion of Ukrainian business are located outside Ukraine, and they managed outside Ukraine, not by Ukrainian banks. All this is a result of currency control activity. Currency control acting in Ukraine is aimed at stopping outflow of currency from Ukraine. This means that the main rule of the business is engaged in international operations is that all the funds that can be withdrawn from Ukraine, they are withdrawn from Ukraine, because people understand that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, nobody will use Ukrainian banks for preserving and managing the funds. If we look at specific things, there's the whole set of problems with currency regulation. They start with the fact that there is a very strict system of reporting for any business entity as to foreign currency transactions. For a small-sized business, this means that it is not able to, it cannot perform these operations because small-sized businesses often include 1 or 2 persons. They cannot file reports into various administrative bodies. They don't have an administrative resource for that. They cannot work with Ukrainian banks who require written copies of completion acts or other forms of documents that are not needed in other countries. Then the issue of foreign currency earnings. Of course, the National Bank has to restrain fluctuations on the foreign currency market and to maintain the national currency exchange rate. But currently, there are more civilized ways. There is economic statistics available to the National Bank, and where it can see who gets what amount of money. But small and medium-sized businesses have to perform the requirements existing to large-sized businesses in terms of returning foreign currency earnings. Many businesses cannot work within the deadlines established for returning foreign currency earnings. And there is an issue of applying special sanctions, individual licensing that haven't been changed during 25 years. And they are applied to any even minor violation, for example, returning several dollars of foreign currency earnings. All this situation on the whole has to be changed very urgently. And as the business association, I can't say that lately that we have been combating it for 20 years, requiring changes to the currency regulation. And we hope that it's time now when these changes will come, because the ability of currency regulation is an essential barrier to destroy a great number of businesses in Ukraine and prevents them from not only developing but work in certain fields.
So I would like to ask our panelists, maybe they can add something on the topic and you would like to contribute. So please, we won't speak about proposals now to establish some logic in our conversation. So I represent the Parliament and also I represent the Committee on European Integration, and here I see political topic. We have the association agreement and 3 articles are identified, and they are dedicated to liberalization. And in this article there are terms where Ukraine should implement these obligations, and time expires, and our obligations on foreign currency liberalization, we have 4 years for this. 3 years have passed, and the process of European integration is ongoing, and now when this ratification will be done until the end of summer, Ukraine will face this issue of implementation of its obligations, and in some time this will be verified in the National Bank of Ukraine. They try to stabilize Ukrainian currency, and it is difficult for them to go outside their main functions, but we should follow the agenda that we have according to the association agreement. And also there is a technical problem in the market. We have free trade zone, but Ukraine exporters are in unfavorable condition regarding those European exporters or any other exporters. So the matter is if we move to these markets, we should change our focus, and we should have the same rules as other participants have. So I will be a devil's advocate. So I will respond step by step. I will specify about what my colleague said. For 1.5 years, I worked in the National Bank and I worked in banking sector, and I understand the problems. So what I want to say is that we clearly understand that currency control is one of the main factors that create our investment climate, but we should understand that this is not at the first place. The international experts put it at the first place, and at the first we have the issue of property rights protection and law enforcement, and the second is currency control, depending on the functions of NBU as regulator. It should provide the stability of the prices and the currency and liberalization. It envisages that if you lift some limitations, there can be some increased demand for currency. In 2014, we remember in what situation Ukraine was and what we faced in 2015. There were some dragon limitations imposed by the National Bank and what it led to. And you see the exchange rate, and you see the results of the introduction of the new policy on inflation targeting, and maybe for the second year we fight inflation efficiently and reach the indicators we planned. And last year it was 12.4%, and we are now trying to reach 8%. So we enter the segment. So I try to provide information where we come from and these limitations, why they were introduced by the NBU. So of course we want to lift these limitations, but the problem is, so the experience of countries of the world that we studied while developing this liberalization. We have examples of quick liberalization, successful and non-successful liberalization. So there were different problems in different countries, and we do not want to have these problems. For 25 years, we lived somehow with a regime that was introduced in 1993. And we understand that we should implement and we should make changes. I won't tell you the details, and temporary limitations we lifted that are provided by bylaws of the National Bank that they can do by their own decision. And we have a decree that should be changed, and the concept that we developed, we thought, what should we do with this document? Whether we should cancel it completely or to replace it by another law. And there are countries that have separate law on this, and there are countries that don't have such law. And we decided to elaborate a draft law. We have the association agreement, as my colleagues mentioned, according to which we have obligation to transfer to the free flow of capital, and this is our end goal. We should harmonize our legislation in this area with European legislation, and there is a regime of free movement of capital both inside EU, and they want to have this regime as well with the third countries. So for us, in the framework of the association agreement and taking into account the directives of EU, What we envisage in this draft law. We declare the regime of free movement of capital, and we understand that we cannot just adopt law and say so there are no limitations at all because we have the IMF programs, so we have the concept that envisages gradual lifting of these limitations to simplify the life of people while analyzing the influence of our decisions on the markets and banking system on the whole. That's why we last month maybe you saw that each week the national bank step by step simplify and cancel those limitations that are in the framework of this priorities, and you may see it on the site. And we want to lift those temporary limitations that were imposed after Maidan and crisis, and the draft law is prepared, and the law on currency that declares the principles. These are revolutionary things for Ukraine because we never had the opportunity to have free foreign economic activity, and also the cancellations of those terms. And you see that there were some sanctions and obligatory selling and checks, verifications we had. So what I wanted to say, one more important aspect, is that when we release the business from these limitations, we will still have, and we will have the safeguard measures like EU countries. We should protect our system from crisis. According to European standards, national bank, when the country has this free flow of the capital in case of some crisis and unfavorable conditions in the market, when the measures should be implemented, they can be implemented for 6 months with the opportunity, if needed, to continue them. So this is a signal for investors that, look, we do not impose limitations forever. You just put it because it happened, and this is the measure for this crisis that are implemented, and then after crisis we will lift these things. So from the other side there is such an issue, the problem of offshores and outflow of the capital, and we see that there are many ways how people siphon this capital away out of the country, and the problem not only in the foreign currency regulations, but there is problem of raiders, and there is problem of the markets inside the country. So what we want to say is that when we provide free movement of capital, we want that our colleagues from the parliament, they would help us, and there should be proper measures in place. And a lot have been said on this, the minimization, the counteraction of minimization of taxation, and also against siphoning away of the capital, and also information that should be circulated among OECD states and OECD states, and also disclosure of the information. We should play fair game. We say we do not control, we do not stop by this control anyone, but we are the proponents of a fair game. We should demonstrate our assets, pay taxes, so people should be ready to have transparent, open business, and this should be done also together with additional laws, maybe on zero declaration, and also we hope that this will be supported by the parliament and society. And about currency regulation, of course, we will change it. It should be according to the world standards when there is risk management approach, and of course it should deal with the issues of smuggling, of trafficking, of smuggling of weapons, and it should relate to some illegal activities, but those regulations, they should not be used in relation to fair and transparent business that should be free of these things. So let's now discuss these issues. Maybe you have questions to panelists. And then we will speak about proposals, and then we will have discussion. So 2 or 3 questions. Please introduce yourself first. And name your institution. Denis Krasnik, Vice President of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs Association. First, I would like to thank you your activity for your thank you for your activity, because this law that exists now, it was developed at times when entrepreneur had to work and the state controlled him, and if he did something, so they had to ask officials. So this ideology should be changed, and I support Igor in his opinion. And I would like to address one important issue: why Ukraine turns to the raw material basis and not turned into a successful country. Because for technological export, for value-added products export, we should create marketing strategies. We should participate in tenders, and GPA agreement is in place, but Ukrainian companies do not participate, and here foreign currency limitations prevent them from active participation, and it is impossible to supply a turbine or an airplane somewhere abroad, because of these regulations our companies cannot take part in foreign tenders. And I am, as a representative of entrepreneur union, I would believe we should establish cooperation with the National Bank. We wrote letters and they answered that gradually we move in this direction, but currency situation does not permit. And now National Bank stabilized the market, and this moment is important for the start of discussion and urgent change of legislation. Otherwise, we won't be able to create new rules of the game. So maybe this is not a question, this is a comment. Do you have questions? Okay, let's move forward. So I would like to present some results of our program, and I'm glad that here in this hall we have our hall and Igor Tsaba, and he provides training for SMEs in the regions on the topics of export. And also we had Igor Snikivkin, and he also we have Yaroslav Ibishuk, Mykola Bolovanets, who joined to the preparation of proposals. So if you have some comments, please join. And speaking about the problems that we discussed, the first discussion that was long and fruitful and rather rigid and hot, it happened in the office of the Council of the Business Ombudsman. It was really hot discussion, and business, especially small business, it is sensitive towards the problems because it takes away money out of their circulation. That's why they were tough while speaking about the problems they face. If we summarize, we may say that the main problems in the currency control are reduced into 5 groups. This is excessive rigidity of the system. The system is obsolete. Also, there is inconsistency with the principles of entrepreneurship and economic code, and the entities should be able to use this earnings at their discretion, and that is limited. And also we spoke about the problem of non-coordination with the agreement, and 3 articles of the agreement that say about free movement of capital, and there can't be a free economic area if the capital cannot freely circulate there. And if we have bilateral agreements with Canada, the Canadian side ratified the agreement, and these issues of currency exchange control, they would prevent these operations with Canada. Also, the introduction of additional limitations by the MBU, this is done without proper grounds, and we see that in the market they say that there is currency instability and imbalance, but we do not see the figures and the results of the introduction of such measures, and it raises some misunderstanding and concern of business. And also the terms, we understand that this reform may happen, and maybe in some time it will happen, and many limitations will be lifted, but business face problems now, and they need some operative and fast actions. And as the result, we have negative results, and we had the focus group of the businessmen. We had one middle enterprise, and others were small enterprise. And in terms of the turnover and number of personnel, if we take these enterprises, we may say that for documents, for the reporting, and for different expenditures concerning the preparation of these reports, and for submission of these documents, this raises the cost of the business activity for 15 or 30%, depending on the specificity of each enterprise. And also currency exchange, they lose about 8% when from their turnover in the foreign economic activity. So money is taken away from them, and then they should buy equipment, and they have to buy foreign currency, and they lose money in these operations. And the average figure, 25–40% of the potential in export is implemented, and there are enterprises who realize only 1/10 of the export potential. There are orders, and they have facilities in order to implement the orders, but because of the terms of this foreign currency operations. They just cannot implement these orders because these terms prevent them from doing this, and that's why our country loses a lot of foreign currency earnings, and this was made public at the National Bank of Ukraine that average losses of business because of this currency limitations is 9.5 billion hryvnias in 2015, and we may say that in 2016 this figure was even bigger. So what we would propose, this is not a radical approach, I would say. This is a liberal approach, and what business would like to have at this stage, while understanding that everyone cannot be done in one step. So this is and those limitations we should understand for what time NBU introduces them. They should not last for years. The second thing is risk-oriented approach in currency control. This is an important aspect, and the use of sanctions is connected with this. And last year, due to the efforts of ours and working with the parliamentarians, we were able to have some liberalization concerning services. But at the same, fiscal body has raised issues that works are not services, but in the international classification, another approach is used. And this year, we hope to resolve the issues concerning works and services, and businesses interested in this, and also limitations for the obligatory sale of foreign currency earnings. Maybe we should cancel it altogether, but if we have this, so we should have a limit. This figure cannot go up. And also the foreign currency payments, and we have our proposals on this. First, about the decisions on this should be grounded, and it should be in coordination of the provisions of the association agreement, and also there should be proper planning of additional limitations, and there should be they should present their plans on these limitations, and also official notification by the National Bank on the additional limitations, and also they should make public the temporary limitations, and also these limitations, they should not be permanent. They should be temporary, only about 6 months, not more, but this is not observed at the moment. So minimum things the business agreed to, that only 50% of foreign currency earnings is sold, and also to release the earnings that are less than $100,000 and small business, they operate usually with the small sums, and also coordination with the principle of entrepreneur activity. So partly, and we should do it with the in respect of Article 44 of the code, and also there are foreign contracts that envisage some order of cooperation between current agents, and while establishing these maximum limits or continuation of the terms, they should take into account the provisions of this agreements. Also, about this year, we should release from any limitations the agreements on export of works and property rights, and concerning also we should the issue of sanctions is also an important aspect. Today, enterprises even plan in their unofficial budgets these fines. So the business, while planning the volume of export, while planning the activity for a year, they envisage money for fines. So also there should be categories established in foreign operations concerning the risks, whether this is the price criteria or the criteria of activities, where this control should be done, and there are some operations that should not envisage control in terms of volume and in terms of goods. And also there should be clear grounds for the introduction of these additional limitations that are envisaged by the legislation. Also the simplification of procedures of continuation of these, and there shouldn't be any limitations in this respect, but the first thing we propose is to introduce declarative principle, not permitting principle, because now the conclusion of the ministry is functionally used as a permitting document. So if it is not forbidden, so you can do it during more extended period. And also we may take into account the agreements between the entities in order that this will be the ground. And the European Business Association expressed its opinion on this, that the agreement and any non-resident and economic entity, they would never allow some non-transparent things in the agreement. That's why we may take into account the obligations of these agreements and to continue the terms of and the extended terms of payment. So we should divide. We spoke about administrative barriers, but we should move forward to the liberalization of foreign currency control, and we hope that all those who are interested will be able to contribute, but maybe not all the issues will be included in the strategy, because the interests of the small business, that these are procedural things, and this is not only about the decree of 1993, but it also relates to other legislation. That's why there should be coordination, and also there should be some amendments and changes into the law of Ukraine on foreign economic activity, because 3 or 4 articles can be used and other articles of this law are obsolete. That's why this is one more aspect for intervention, and this should be based on the comprehensive strategy in order to understand where these initiatives lead to and what result we will have in the end. So we cannot highlight everything now, and we provided our view in the materials, our comprehensive approach to currency control issues. So this is not all economic activity, this is only an aspect. So if you have your own opinion, separate ideas, so we will be grateful for your comments. If you contact us, we will be grateful. So And we will continue dialogue with the National Bank, and we believe that this is really important, and also with the European Business Association, and we hope that many deputies will contribute and will be interested in promotion of this topic in the Parliament, and we are thankful to the entrepreneur union that they joined us today, and we hope that also Chamber of Commerce will participate more, and we believe that we should intensify our activity, all the stakeholders, and this is an important issue in order to promote export and to increase volume in export activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lubomyr. I'd like to draw attention to the fact that everything that was shown by these slides goes in line with what we have put into this project, and even more. Many steps here are very cautious, and we have moved even further. I could tell you a lot about details, but the basic principles are as follows. Removing restrictions to foreign currency operations for individuals, cancelling restrictions for legal entities. So we have 180 days in the law on settlements. It will be cancelled. This law will be cancelled, and there is no point in Article 37 on economic activity. So the issue of sanctions is also removed. So we say that there are no restrictions on introducing foreign currency earnings. It should be brought to zero, even if there is a crisis, but which the National Bank should introduce if something happens to the country. This is another issue of safety and security. We have licenses that are remaining for banks, and we don't have to have individual licenses. They don't need to be introduced, not to discriminate certain entities. And what else? It's clear that hryvnia is the only means of payment. Please don't think that we will imagine something innovative, but what was forbidden in the decree and what was possible only with the National Bank permission, financial transactions, financial institutions can perform their financial transactions in any currency. Once they got a license, if they credit national importers, then they can accept deposits if they want to, but even other transactions with factoring or leasing in foreign currency won't need a permission from the National Bank. I don't know what else can be liberalized. Maybe you will suggest removing something else. We are open to the dialogue. You have my contacts. I'm in the working group which developed this law, and we have a roadmap which is not publicized because it has sensitive things to the market, and not all the plans can be open, but they set down all the steps to provide constituency, and there are no calendar dates there. We say everywhere we cannot promise that on the 1st of September there will be no distortion in the market. We have a very positive situation. We have good amount of foreign currency earnings. You will see which conditions are being created, what conditions are being created for investment abroad. We have increased this amount to 2 million per year. You understand that some companies want to invest into the market, into their products, but we will see how the market will react to these 2 million. That was the average statistical number of amount of investment abroad. If there is no boom, then we will remove this restriction. So you can believe that we will do everything possible to avoid affecting the inflation indicators, the financial stability in the foreign currency market, and the law is a revolutionary one, and it will require comprehensive support. That's why I invite you to doing this thing, to supporting us in this law, so that we all together with all experts and all organizations who are helping us support this law in the public space. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to emphasize that we hope very much the interests of such micro business, the so-called, will also be taken into account maximally, because there are global changes and fine technical changes. They can be very painful for small-sized or micro businesses. Knowing the time limitations, I'd like to say to Olena Sotnyk what we can hope for on behalf of the Parliament in all the senses, both in the operational and the strategic. And I see that one of my colleagues wants to talk. Thank you very much. Olena will be first. Frankly speaking, I'm a little bit reformate my presentation, and if you permit, I will build a certain communication. Having the experience over the parliamentary work, I understand very well what type of strategy we should have to push the initiatives and to acquire wide support. For example, what we would need to have and see. I communicated with our representative of the faction and the committee concerning the agreement. As far as I understood, there is no close work together with the National Bank of Ukraine and parliamentarians. It seems that because of that, it complicates the communication process in the parliament. I'd suggest that the National Bank of Ukraine would work with the relevant committee to present this concept, and my specific committee, proposal from our Committee of European Integration. We are ready within the framework of the agreement and directives to ensure the implementation of our obligations, to support the project. And really, this draft law you are talking about is strategic. It can have conceptual things. It can have terms in transitive provisions that can be put into operation with a delay. Is clear. In principle, such conceptual draft laws will go through the parliamentary consideration a half year, even a year. But what I read from your concept and what I would like to analyze, I saw a number of technical things concerning administration or transparency of decision making, or, for example, some predictability of these decisions. So this is a technical mechanism, and I would suggest that we would think what we have in this draft law and to divide it into the strategic and the tactical part. The strategic part would provide for engaging everybody in the parliament, and the tactical part that can be done right now and that can facilitate the situations that simplify the situation for small, medium-sized business, is that to remove all the discrepancies available there. I don't think that this will evoke an opposition here and from the point and on behalf of the National Bank of Ukraine. So it isn't covered by your restrictions, and very often our draft laws are written from the point of view of presumption of guiltiness. And we need to proceed from the presumption of goodwill and decency of entrepreneurs. From what I see, There is a great myth. If we liberalize it right now, then the flows of foreign currency will go from Ukraine. Those who wanted to withdraw money from here, from Ukraine, they have done that and they are continuing to do that. And they have specific schemes. Now, I'd focus not on the concept, but I'd propose to make a very specific roadmap showing what things could be implemented and in what stages and how, and to establish deadlines to coordinate that with stakeholders, the National Bank of Ukraine, the parliament, entrepreneurs, and the government representatives. I don't think that this communication platform needs a long time for gathering and coordination. I'm sure that the expert strategy presented here lacks a story about administrative and technical things. And our colleague will support, I'm sure, our initiative and will be an active part in the Ministry of Economics. Someone can play a role of a communicator to confirm that we are ready to do this, and we can communicate the same way with the relevant committee and to move toward implementation of practical things. We are not having a tough discussion in our discrepancy. The National Bank may have restrictions on deadlines and maybe stages of this implementation, but this doesn't mean that we can move forward and rather quickly. Our strategic purpose is not even the transfer from the currency control to monitoring, but increase of export potential, because this is the only way for GDP to grow, non-populistic option to increase salaries, well-being. This is our strategic goal, and undoubtedly, this is one of the most efficient instruments and tools on the surface. Thank you, Olena. You know, this is a wonderful situation when people start talking with each other and to understand that they think in a similar way, in similar direction. This is a good sign. I'd like to react saying that our program is ready to play a role of a platform. We will undertake this role with pleasure. And if need be, we will support necessary expert support on behalf of lawyers and economists. So I think another committee, parliamentary committee, will engage in this work. This is the Committee of Industrial Policy and Entrepreneurship. Judging by the moods of some MPs, I'm sure they will be happy to be active participants of this process. I'd like to give the floor to Tatiana very much, because if not for the Ombudsman Business Council, our program wouldn't have touched upon this subject. You had a very good systemic last year report on this topic. You were the first to see all this set of problems. That it would be very interesting to hear you. I can also mention with pleasure that at this panel discussion we don't have positions on behalf of the participants of the panel, because different situations may occur. As the Deputy Ombudsman in Business, I should mention that after 2 years, this topic is finally starting to find its place among a wide range of stakeholders, because really the National Bank was doing its work. And it's interesting when we can see promulgated draft law, because the work done by the program layer, it has to complement steps that were set forth by Emal. Because for the Business Ombudsman Council, it's important not to be troubled on this issue, to remove these barriers. And as a country and the business, we could move forward, and our role is to be mediators, to help to decide complicated issues that were accumulated during the whole history of our independent Ukraine. And we see that even great desire to do something with small actions, because the problem, it doesn't bring us to the result, because the problem wasn't from yesterday, it was from the previous century, because it happened yet before the year 2000. First of all, I'm not afraid that I will stay without, that I will lose my work, because at everyday work, the Business Ombudsman Council comes across another problems, but if really it will be reformed the way it's reforming now, there will be no need for it in the future, and it will be a normal, positive, evolutionary process of this institution's development. But unfortunately, we have much work to do. The Parliament has certain understanding. This is a representative of one faction. If we work with others, then we can see we can engage others, because all the issues raised today unite everyone. We are all interested to see Ukraine a reliable and predictable partner on the global trade space. Ihor, thank you, Tatiana. Yes, I will add several comments, brief comments. First comment related to the fact that actually our practice is a rather interesting situation, related to the fact that on the one hand we signed the association agreement and we have a whole set of agreements on investment protection. And we signed these agreements with key leading economies. And according to these documents, foreign businesses were given the national regime of work in Ukraine. This is a general principle existing, but unfortunately, this regime doesn't work in currency regulation. And a large amount of international businesses that would like to use the benefit from the advantages existing in Ukraine, human resources experience, those businesses who want to locate headquarters of international offices in Kyiv. First of all, the first question they ask, and every month we have a request as to the locating a headquarter of a national company in Ukraine. When we start to explain them the system of currency regulation and the declarative principle of national regime that doesn't work in currency regulation, they take a decision in favor of Warsaw, Moscow, Istanbul, or other country. Unfortunately, we have to state that this is not an issue of our censorship prospective project, because even today we have given a theoretical regime for such international businesses, which doesn't work in practice, unfortunately, because the permanent representative office of a foreign business entity cannot use their accounts with Ukrainian banks to perform foreign economic activity. And this is not an issue that it doesn't exist in the legislation. It is solved by the legislation. Unfortunately, the National Bank misinterprets relevant provisions of the legislation or creates barriers for the international business, foreign business entities, to prevent them from using available opportunities. And I don't know how this issue will be solved in the new legislation, but unfortunately the currency control system for international business is being used as the instrument of combating international competition by the Ukrainian business. Because the National Bank, maybe without wanting it, but forbade foreign business entities to make settlements, to get foreign currency earnings for permanent representative office, perform operations with foreign earnings. So foreigners cannot do that in Ukraine at all. So what headquarter can be spoken about located in Ukraine when such business entities cannot perform such elementary transactions in Ukraine, though this is guaranteed by the law? But based on the National Bank instruction or guidelines, Nobody can do that. Unfortunately, this aspect isn't being discussed, and I think that the correct thing will be to set a more specific task to compare Kyiv with Istanbul or with Warsaw or the center of a region that sets a task to concentrate all international business in Kyiv, not in small regions. And respect to all conditions existing for foreign currency payments for large companies or headquarters, they shouldn't be worse than our neighbors have, because otherwise we will remain a raw material country, and all these attempts to create a mechanism for more complicated transactions, services of these operations will be located abroad. Thank you, Ihor. I think that yes, it's true, but as far as I understand, this problem of the future currency regulation and the future system of currency control, in the way it will appear, it should be noted that conditions should be created when Ukraine will be able to compete with foreign countries and to attract businesses to open their representative office here. And I think that probably we need to measure what should be done in these regulations with benchmarking instruments, looking at our neighbors to make us attractive, but at least not worse than our neighbors. I agree absolutely. Again, I will touch upon one aspect I didn't have time to talk about. Of course, it's clear we cannot talk about everything at once. There is an issue. We have an understanding of this problem. Our law is very frame, is a frame type. One item we wrote very clearly: non-residents will have the same rights as residents in Ukraine from the point of view of currency regulation, a full stop. This is probably what is wanted from us. Once this provision is written in the law, everything changes. Then the regime of settlements forbidding people from transactions is cancelled, and we level everybody in rights, and we create a competitive environment in Ukraine that should be better and not worse than our neighbors have. We saw the legislation of our neighbors. We saw the Polish, the Romanian, the Bulgarian, the Turkish, the Czech law. Everything is very similar to our situation. They are our neighbors. They have this regime of free movement of capital in one or another way. And we were doing a similar regime. So to say that we will forbid something that they don't have, I don't see this. And this problem will be removed. You will see it in the new law. This phrase, only one thing scared me. Very frame type. I need to see this text because I'm afraid of frame laws. Why? Because we felt that in the decree, once in a decree you write some sums, amounts, percent, then you see that it's almost impossible to change it. It's only the parliament. And if you see that the law has a freedom, that it shouldn't write that a freedom is applied to such and such and such transactions, you just say that there are no restrictions. Let's hope that relevant procedures will be set forth. I will ask you to help with the mic. Dear colleagues, excuse me for taking the floor, but before starting asking questions, I'd like to say this is not our first discussion at the crisis center. Maybe it's the first discussion. When there are no contradictions I would like to express 2 moments. We talk about the scale of the reform and the rates of its implementation. Scales are really very large. It's what Ukraine needs. Currency liberalization. Lubomyr said that we need to be not the best, but at least not the worst. I cannot help answering that it will work like this, because globalization, which is taking place outside Ukraine, they are evidencing that today not to be the worst, it means that to be the last. And saying that we are a country which finds itself in a complicated situation, we need to do a substantial reform, and rather quickly. What wasn't said today, but which was in the air, we mentioned draft law which is being developed about on currency, foreign currency. It's very important. But the issues of monitoring, work of a relevant system that will save, that will preserve the interests of citizens, and that will impose fines. It all should come within the system. Because very often we have liberalization, but we fail to do one thing. We often mentioned how law enforcement bodies work, and then it happens that liberalization didn't work. And who is guilty? Liberalization is guilty. It's not so in the reality. That's why we need to have a comprehensive process of reformation. And the National Bank needs an undoubted help. The last thing I wanted to say, remember an example of one of the liberalization cases that was moving backward and forward. This is the liberalization of the grain market in Ukraine. From time to time, Ukraine, especially on the background of the fluctuations on the foreign market, introduced restrictions. The last thing that I remember, it's 2012 or 2011. I remember my conversation with one of the very distinguished expert. He said to me, look, Ukraine is such a large actor on the grain market that every decision taken by Ukraine on this market affects the international market. Ukraine has made liberalization, and what happened? It's really an important player on this market. That's why, please, your questions. And here is, I'm putting a full stop, if I may, to practical questions. In terms of the draft law submission and who will be the subject of the legislative initiative, we are developing a separate strategy. There should be a separate strategy to promote a law. Which best ways can we choose? I cannot say it because our leadership management is still discussing this issue, either through MPs or the administration. I cannot say, but the draft law is nearly ready, 100%. We cannot talk about months. We intended to end it till the end of the second quarter. The second quarter, it's till the end of the month. Actually, this month, I think that it gives us a reserve as some delay occurs. I don't know what, but the text is nearly ready. So I think that we will be in time, even earlier than at the end of the month. And the second question, maybe it's rather a proposal. You spoke about comparing investment attractiveness of Ukraine with its neighbors. It's an important question, and it's clear why the European Association raises this question when we support it. But we have a necessity of comparing Ukraine with as an exporter with our competitors, with Russia in engineering and Poland in producing goods of commodities of wide consumption, with Poland in terms of agricultural production. All our station cannot cope with it. We need foreign experts. And we need to look at how our players can appear in better conditions and to try to create these better conditions as compared to our competitors. You know, within the framework of our program, we sat down repeatedly discussing the strategy of Ukraine, and we saw it as a strategy in terms of individual commodity market where Ukraine can buy or entering new markets, but at least from what is being presented officially and published in Ukraine as of today, we don't see such an approach. And moreover, I'd like to share with you an experience that 1.5 months I was lucky to be present at the presentation of the export strategy of Georgia, after which in 2 weeks I read our Ukrainian export strategy. And I even had a déjà vu, because by 95% they are identical in their content and their directions and approaches, determined as the toolkit. So I have a question. Where can we see a competitive advantage of both Ukraine and Georgia? So you're completely right, because it's a very important task. Maybe with one European Union alone, we won't be successful completely, and we would like to help, but we also have our limits and the time limits. Let's discuss of records, and we can see what we can do. It's a really mega task for Ukraine to make it successful on foreign markets. Dear colleagues, your opportunity to ask questions and to comment. We still have half an hour. That's why I invite you to take the floor, but please introduce yourself.
The comment to the Ombudsman office, to those who are present here today. So we say that legislation should be changed, and I would like to focus on fundamental constitutional right. This is to own, and if you produce some value and you sold it in the market, the currency is an asset that can be contributed to the statute fund, or it can be used as a collateral. Why National Bank comes to me and say that you should sell half? So we forgot about another type of public and state partnership. The National Bank who regulates the market, it is not a business partner. You didn't come to me and say that please help the state and I will borrow this foreign currency earnings. For example, I come to my neighbor and I say, please give me $100 and I will give it back in a month. And in this way, fundamental rights are violated. If you come to me and say, please give me something, we become partners. And when you say that I should sell, then we know that money is needed in relation to the goods produced. So you generate inflation when you oblige us to sell this foreign currency earnings. So in Excel and other things, they do not increase this mass. So in this way, NBU impose a burden on us, and commercial banks also force us to prepare many documents for this currency control. So Ombudsman office should raise these issues. This is the issue of ownership. Why do they force me to sell? National bank violates its function of a regulated, becomes like some commercial bank. So this is my ownership, and if you take a Mercedes from me and give me Tavria, and then you say drive it, and why should I? And if you decided, if you take money from me for 24 hryvnias per dollar, so you should return money at the same rate. So if and businessmen, we just deal with some commas in the documents, and maybe you saw my smile. You said that you did this and that, and you tried to help us, and I just see that you're not blue, you are red already, but you should understand what you do to business nowadays. This is not a question, this is a comment. So you summarized what we discussed today, and this is the essence. What we do now in our discussion, what can be done today, and what is presented by the National Bank representative. So they understood, and they prepare now this product, and the Council of Business Ombudsman, they also promote positive things, and 2 years ago we started to discuss these issues. And people said that we have many problems in the country, in business area, and we try to promote this aspect. And at that times, people were not ready to openly speak about these issues with the National Bank. And I applied my documents for the contest for the position of deputy head of the council, and we met with Gontareva, and we met in the American Chamber of Commerce with our colleagues and discussed public and private and public partnership concerning these regulations, and the people were not ready to discuss these issues. And now the situation has changed, and what you've said and what you've commented, that this is what we now see steps ahead. This is the professional response to the requirements of the business, and you know that it is really acute problems, and it is really difficult to resolve them quickly. So I would like to answer. I partly understand your position. I would like to say that I worked in business, but when you become a regulator, you are in an interesting situation. So there are a lot of you. There are exporters, there are importers, and in the market something happens. There is some imbalance, and exporters are happy and importers are not happy. They come to us, they say, you see the situation, there is inflation, state debt rises, and the people becomes poor, communal payments go up, so everything is bad. It's a catastrophe. Then another, there is deflation, no, revolving, and then exporters come and they say, why you see, we are losing money because the currency exchange rate went down. So we should, as regulator, we should take into account the interests of business, but first we should take in mind the interest of the state and and population. So we should address these issues. But when you say, why do you force me to sell currency? But this is evident. We are forced to introduce such limitations. Maybe I can explain it to you and you will say whether you agree. So if you take at the rate of 24, you should give it back at the same rate. So you provided a commercial structure and you say we have problems, we have imbalance, but he gets it in order to have some activity, and they get earnings and they have some profitability from these operations, and he gets profit, and I'm deprived of my money at this point. But what are you going to do with this foreign currency? This is my right. No regulator can deal with this. So I'm interested. Why do you need to preserve? Why don't you want to preserve it? I'm like Scrooge McDuck. I want to preserve my money. When there is crisis in the country, devaluation and exporters lose, so all societies suffer. What exporters do, and you do the same. Why sell today if you can sell tomorrow? But maybe everyone wants to wait. And when they say, what is Ukrainian market? Several big exporters, and this is all we have. So what export do we have? 35 billion out of 80 we had in 2013, and this is for the whole country. So you earn foreign currency, you sell this, and you try to speculate. We understand that you want to have it and then to sell dollars tomorrow. What is the depth of the market? What is the development of the market? Is when no player can speculate. And if your market depends on the big player, he stops selling currency, and then your exchange rate goes up. If you have developed markets like in Europe or in the United States, where you have thousands of exporters, no one can come, and if they so if your market is balanced, this is good situation. But if one player can change the market, or several companies, they can change the market. So this is not a good situation. So we cannot have different regulations for different entities. So the approach should be the same for everyone. So if you see that they do not want to sell now, but you have a crisis, you have a social function, and this function is envisaged by legislation. When you say that we force you to sell, but you understand that this is the situation in the country, and what kind of borrowing did you mention? So for this foreign exchange earning, and if so, when I said that I'm a producer and exporter, I never hold this currency. Financial institutions manipulate, and I, as a producer, I buy wood, spare parts. I, for example, produce wooden constructions. I have my cash flow. I want to have this foreign currency. Maybe I may hold it, but I do not want to depend on a commercial bank, because they want to, so you should be the partners. National bank should be a partner. You shouldn't take this money away. You look like just the state in the 1930s, when the state just took away assets from people and gave them nothing back. So this is an ideological discussion, because Yes, there are some limitations established, and the regulator should implement its functions. And we have this ideological concept what this regulator should be and what are the functions of the regulator. But this is the higher level issues. So here we are speaking about strategy of the state and the economic planning, economic forecast. And you know that there are difficulties in this area in this country. So this aspect should be outside our discussion in the sense that now we are speaking about regulation in the sphere of control, not the decisions of the government or economic strategy of the government and its influence on macroeconomic level, or because this is a longer discussion, maybe we should get prepared to it in a different way. So I saw that Igor wanted to comment on this. Thank you, Lubomyr. If you raised this topic that is more conceptual about ownership on this currency. So the first aspect is that despite hryvnia is the means of payment in Ukraine, we have the Parkinson laws. The more you say that hryvnia is the means of payment, the less people will trust in this. So if there is a chance to adopt a law on foreign currency, we should look at the experience of other nations. For example, experience of Hungary. There you can pay in euro in the shops, and for small business, this is not a problem. So they can take foreign currency from their clients, and we are not far from Hungary. And we have expectations that the European Union is closer to us due to this visa-free regime, and maybe there won't be customs control with the European Union soon. So foreign currency regulation should go step ahead, and they should help business, and the business should be able to accept foreign currency. So it doesn't mean that we recognize foreign currency as a means of payment in the territory of the country, but not only entities like banks should deal with foreign currency, but also the economic entities and should be able to do this. So this concept should, and this is a good moment to change things in this area. Maybe not in the framework of this draft law that is being prepared, but the more you have limitations, the less currency you have in the country. So each limitation provides information to other partners abroad that they should flee and take the currency out. So we have only 5 economic entities that have this currency in the state, and others they just take it away. So another issue is the depth of the market and the forecast about the exchange rates of currencies. So there are forward instruments, and the national bank can form the market for months, and for several months they can say what rate will be. And also it can be done now, but this is not done. If we had the instruments for this, and the business, they sell currency and they understand that they will have forward, and they will know what the exchange rate will be. But these instruments, they are not active in our conditions. Several words about these limitations. So these are temporary limitations. They will be lifted soon. About the payments in foreign currencies. So this will be a new model, And it is said that the operations, the transactions may be done in foreign currency, and if we will integrate really quickly, and the issue will be that there will be transactions in euro, maybe our country will shift to euro, nothing will forbid the bank in some cases to allow the transactions in euro. So there is no prohibition in this in the law. And what you say, the settlements in euro in airports and tourist areas, so this will we will be able to do it, and this is not forbidden by law. So you can join discussion. We have time for this. Your questions, your comments, maybe some specifications, and please join us. Good afternoon, Mykola Balanets, a lawyer, USAID Love. I heard you carefully. So you said that about foreign business that want to open offices here in Ukraine. So there are some, why NBU doesn't implement any measures in order to allow foreign business to open offices here. So you say that you wait for the new law, but current legislation maybe there can be bylaws that would simplify foreign currency earnings control or to resolve other issues. So if you have examples, so what prevents this opening of foreign company office here in Ukraine? So maybe there are some details. I'm not ready to speak about the other issues. I would like to speak about the topic of the event. So, National Bank is open for proposals if there are arguments. So maybe there are some problems why these offices are not open here. So you say that law allows us to do such things. I say we do what we can at our level. And we lift the limitations that we can lift, and we closely cooperate with business, and we may remove some excessive limitations and excessive documents. So this is done, and I can show it to you, and you may address business on these issues, whether they are helped in this area. And also there are issues on investment and sale of foreign currency earnings, and there are more than 100 legislative acts on foreign currency transactions, and we have 180 days, and also prohibition of buying foreign currency by non-residents. So you said that you just wait. We do not wait. We work. We develop and try to promote this draft law. So do you have other questions? Or maybe we highlighted everything in a good way and we touched upon many aspects, or maybe we confused you and maybe people just don't understand what we are talking about. So do you have questions or comments, please? Olga Kvorostina, Levy Bereg News Outlet. I spoke with the representatives of SMEs, and they told me about their problems with the export. And one of entrepreneurs said that in Ukraine there is limitations in the use of PayPal system. That's why he has some problems with the customers. And is this a priority for the National Bank now to expand PayPal in Ukraine? And what can be done for this? So maybe this is about international payment systems like PayPal. So this is the department of the payment system. I didn't take part in the negotiations. Now, foreign currency legislation does not prevent PayPal from being in operation. So I do not know what they had. They had negotiations with the National Bank. I do not know about the obstacles. What are the obstacles for entering of PayPal? I do not know their problems. So first, this is not about payment system. This law doesn't provide limitations on the foreign currency, and if people are free in foreign currency transactions, it means that there are no any limitations for PayPal system and for other systems like this. I do not want to discuss the issues of PayPal. This is then not the problem of foreign currency control. They always ask me about it during the meetings, but the National Bank doesn't have the goal to prevent PayPal from operations. So I believe that we all want that PayPal operate in Ukraine because we do not want to be the only country in the world that doesn't have the system. So I would like to comment on the issue of PayPal. I was in the working group at the National Bank that dealt with the entering of PayPal in Ukraine. So I should say that there are some technical issues that are connected with the documents of the National Bank. And unfortunately, National Bank do not want to resolve this issue. In 2015, there was an introduction of some requirement about registration of PayPal system for payments in foreign currency. And after the introduction of such changes to the rules, in order to make payments in foreign currency for the residents of Ukraine, PayPal company didn't want to continue negotiations for the use of the system for the residents of Ukraine. Then the National Bank prepared the draft law together with a group of deputies to improve the work of payment systems. And now this draft law is submitted to the committee, and now they discuss this document. And the concept of registration of international companies such as PayPal. So at the level of this draft law, they want to propose registration regulation and the establishment of limitations. That's why this concept of control over such systems, there should be other proposals in order to these systems be here. So if they want to have this without registration, and the situation is in other countries, but our NBU and they are not ready to provide them such access without this registration. So also maybe this draft law we discussed may influence on the situation, but my colleague said it correctly that this is the issue of regulation of, this is the issue for other department of the National Bank that deal with this issue. So other people deal with these issues. And also about individual licensing for opening accounts in foreign banks. If the entity or physical person, entrepreneur or micro enterprise want to open account and to get money there, so this can be an obstacle because this is difficult for them to get such license. So this is we discussed it with the micro business. So our time is up. I would like to thank everyone for participating in this discussion. All those who joined us as the audience and the discussants, I would like to remind you that our today's panel discussion was organized by USAID Leadership in Economic Governance with the partnership of Ukraine Crisis Media Center, and I would like to thank the representatives of the National Bank Office of Business Ombudsman and our also representative of the Parliament, Olena Sotnyk, and the representative of Business Association and the Baker McKenzie for this deep and fruitful discussion. Follow our website and our page on Facebook, and we announce our events there, and also we made public our results there. So we will be glad to see you in further discussions, and we are ready for cooperation with you. So thank you very much. Till the next time, goodbye.